What's up, Salty? Thanks for joining us online, and happy Easter! Yeah, we got a great service in store for you today. Excited about what you're going to see. The team here is getting ready to go up on stage. We're going to sing a few songs and lead you in a few songs, and then our lead pastor, Robbie O'Brien, is going to come up. He's got a great message of hope. Excited for you today. Hey, let us know you're here. If you got any questions or if we can pray for you, let us know, and we're going to get started here.
Well, thanks for joining us, and happy Easter. Whether you're watching us online or here in person, would you stand? If it's your first time or first time back in a while, we want to just welcome you and invite you to sing and celebrate the resurrection of our Savior with us today. Come on, let's clap our hands. Arise, my soul, remember this. He took my sin and he buried it. No longer I who live, now Jesus lives in me. For I was dead in sin, but I woke up to see the light. Sing, I won't boast, but in the cross that saved my soul. All else is lost. The grip of fear has no hold on me. So where, oh death, where is your sting? No longer I who live, now Jesus lives in me. For I was dead in sin, but I woke up to see the light. So thankful, Jesus. With one voice, let's declare all this. And all of this for your glory. And all of this for your glory. It's all for him today. And all of this for your glory. And all of this for your glory. Yeah, sing, oh, all of this for your glory. And all of this for your glory. No longer I who live. We say, now Jesus lives in me. For I was dead in sin, but I woke up to see the light. We're so thankful, Lord. With one voice, all of it. Sing, oh, all of this for your glory. And all of this for your glory. Yes, it is. And all of this for your glory. And all of this for your glory. Can we celebrate that today? Yeah. And I searched the world, but it couldn't fill me. And man's empty praise, treasures that fade, are never enough. and he came along, and you came along and put me back together. Every desire is now satisfied here in your love. See, there's nothing, oh, there's nothing better than you. Oh, there's nothing better than you. Oh, there's nothing, nothing is better than you. Yes, Jesus. And I'm not afraid to show you my weakness. There is your flaws, Lord, you've seen them all, and you still call me friend. There's truth in these words, because the God of the mountain is the God of the valley. There's not a place your mercy and grace won't find me again. Oh, there's nothing better than you. Oh, there's nothing better than you. Oh, there's nothing, nothing is better than you. Oh, there's nothing better than you. Oh, there's nothing better than you. Oh, there's nothing, oh, nothing is better than you. Come on, this is the gospel today. He's making things new in our lives. We sing. You turn mourning to dancing. You give beauty for ashes. You turn shame into glory. You're the only one who can. You turn mourning to dancing. You give beauty Jesus, you're our hope. You're the hope of the world. You're the only hope for us. We declare that in this moment. How great the chasm that lay between us. How high the mountain I could not climb. In desperation, I turned to heaven and spoke your name into the night. And through the darkness, your loving kindness tore through the shadows of my soul. The work is finished, the end is written. Jesus Christ, my living hope. Who could imagine so great a mercy? What heart could fathom such boundless grace? The God of ages stepped down from glory to wear my sin and bear my shame. The cross is spoken, I am forgiven. The King of Kings calls me his own. Yes, he does. Beautiful Savior, I'm yours forever. Jesus Christ, my living hope. Hallelujah, he's the one who set me free. Hallelujah, death has lost its grip on me. You have broken every chain. There's salvation in your name. Jesus Christ, my living hope. Hallelujah, he's the one who set me free. Hallelujah, death has lost its grip on me. You have broken every chain. There's salvation in your name. Jesus Christ, my living hope. Then came the morning that sealed the promise. Your buried body began to breathe. Out of the silence, the roaring lion declared the grave has no claim on me. With one voice we sing. Then came the morning that sealed the promise. Your buried body began to breathe. Out of the silence, the roaring lion declared the grave has no claim on me. Jesus, yours is the victory. So we sing hallelujah, hallelujah. Praise the one who set me free. Hallelujah, has lost its grip on me. You have broken every chain. There's salvation in your name. Jesus Christ, my
Salty, especially this time of the year where we're talking about the living hope of Jesus. So welcome to Salty again. If this is your first time here, thank you for being and joining us online here at Salty. If you will, take a little time and push that Connect tab and let us know how we can serve you or pray for you if you have any prayer requests. Or if you have any questions you want to ask, just ask them and we'd be more than happy to answer them. I always want to talk to you about next steps. What's that look like in your life, in your faith journey? So one of the things here that we do pretty regularly is called Discover Salty. So it's a conversation we have about who we are at Salty. And even more so, we want to know who you are and how we can help you out. So if you're interested in Salty, but you want to take it to the next level, Discover Salty's for you. So we're going to do that at 10:30, April 18th at our rescue station. Or check us out online. You'll be able to check it out there too. Well, we've just moved into our connection time inside. And so our connection time is a time where we continue to worship God and connect with Him, or just kind of chill out for a moment. But one of the great things about our connection time is connecting with God. So if you'd like to just take this time to pray and ask God to speak to your heart for a great message about hope, feel free to do that. Or if you want to check out what we've got going on our events page, feel free to do that too. If you want to take communion, communion is a great time right now to take, more than ever. Just remembering the Jesus sacrifice on the cross for you and His resurrection from the grave to give us hope and to give us life. And then one of the things we always want to challenge you with is your generosity. We always say generosity changes everything, because it does. And one of the things that it changes is the lives of people. So let me give you an example. So one of our ministers here is Salty Family Services. They rescue and empower families. They rescue children from neglect and abuse. So because of your generosity and your giving, last year Salty Family Services was able to change the lives of 459 families. That's amazing, because of your generosity and because of your giving. So if you'd like to give and show your generosity to the ministries here of Salty, just connect with us through that tab there, and you can give online, and we appreciate every time that you do. And if you're a guest, we don't expect for you to give. Today, it's all about the gift of hope for you. So Robbie O'Brien, our lead pastor, is coming up, and he's got a great message about hope. So enjoy.
Everybody. Happy Easter to you. Yeah, it's a big weekend. This is like the highlight of all highlights for the entire year for all believers, not just here, of course, but all around the world. And so welcome. And everybody who's watching in New Smyrna, welcome to Salt D Church. Everybody who's watching in Flagler, welcome to Salt D Church. For people who are watching at home on a tablet, everybody who's here on our Ormond campus, welcome. Man, we are excited to have you. My name is Robbie, lead pastor here at Salt D Church, and I get to help share with you today a message of hope. And I'm excited about that. I hope you are. It's just such an important thing for all of us to take a moment to stop and to remember what all of this is about. That without Jesus on this Easter day, let's say Easter day like that, without Jesus on our Easter day, then we don't have a faith that's worth believing in. But with Jesus, man, this is what it's all about. So welcome. As we get started here, I wanted to, share with you, part of it is just my quirky brain sometimes, how it works when I'm studying, trying to prepare and thinking about how to communicate things along the line. I randomly sometimes just have these ideas and I kind of follow down these rabbit trails. And as I was preparing for this day, this whole entire weekend, I keep having this one song stuck in my head. And it's not exactly an Easter song, but it may sound like it at first, but you know the song too, because it's, how's it go? It's like Staying Alive, right? Staying Alive, the Bee Gees song. Like if we had the music and all, we could do like sing along and we could have like a disco thing and Staying Alive, right? And so Staying Alive might sound like it's clearly not an Easter song, but it's been in my head because it's the CPR song. Maybe. You know how they say that? It's like if you're like when you're doing CPR on somebody, you're supposed to like count at 120 beats a minute. We'll kind of find out it's the same as a tune, Staying Alive, right? So for those of you who are old enough to remember roller skating to that song, you know the song, right? For others, this is a CPR song. There was a whole scene in The Office, the whole Staying Alive stuff. Anyways, so it's been in my head all week long as I'm thinking about and preparing for this. But especially the CPR part, right? And then I've never fortunately have ever needed to do CPR on somebody. But it's like, one of the things I always think, I'm like, it's like, I don't know the words to a song. Is that going to mess me up doing CPR? It's like, if you don't know the words, you know the beat, but I don't know if anybody knows all the words to the whole thing. But anyways, it just keeps me thinking, and it's weird. And then I start wondering, like, how long you can do CPR on somebody. And so I'm like, spend half of my time at my desk just chasing down these random thoughts, right? And then come to find out, when you're doing CPR with somebody, if their heart stops, you got like 10 minutes, maybe 20 minutes, to help revive them, or there's no hope. There are stories of going beyond that, but usually like 10 to 20 minutes is the big window. And I heard this one story where this guy was like 47 minutes dead, no heartbeat. 47 minutes of like, they counted it up, it was like 4,500 compressions, 8 zaps with the zappers. I don't know what they're called. They're zappers. So, but I'm like 47 minutes, and I'm like, that's just like nearly miraculous. But of course, the way I think about it is the guy's finally, the guy whoever's heart stopped, just finally like, stop singing that song and I'll come back. Just leave me alone, right? I'm tired of this song. So, and the dude wakes up and he's full recovery and all that. So anyway, so that's just kind of how I'm thinking about all these things. And then I realize, something to hold on to as you think about like CPR and how to revive somebody and all that kind of stuff. It's one thing to revive a sick person after like 10, 15, 20 minutes of like no heartbeat. But it's when you think it after an hour, it's nearly hopeless. There's a couple miraculous stories that goes beyond being an hour, but nobody is revived after 3 days, right? And you think about that. It's one thing to revive a sick person. It's a whole nother thing to resurrect a dead person. When somebody needs to be revived, there's some things you can do. But once someone is dead, there is nothing that you can do. And that really helps me to hone in on this day and why we're here. Because you know what? If you need help with some parts of your life, if you got things that are going on and you need help, the church is here for you. But ultimately, where do you go when there is no hope? And when you get to those moments, you feel like, I don't know what else to do. I think more than anything else, this is the weekend that we stop and remember that there's power beyond like the ability to revive. Like some people are talented, some people are powerful kinds of people, but beyond all of that, there is only one who has the power of resurrection. And in this story, we learn about that. And then ultimately what I want to do is help you to understand why it even matters to you today. It's the Easter story. So let me start by reading through the Easter story and highlighting a couple of things. If you've got a phone, tablet, you can pull that out. You got a Bible app. If you don't, you should have one. Open that up, Matthew 28. The last chapter in the book of Matthew, and there are other gospel stories, but we're going to be in Matthew 28, and I'm just going to show you the story. Because in the story, we have this miraculous and an amazing event that happened that's central to all of our faith. What is that story? Let's remember what that is. So we're going to be in Matthew 28, starts in verse 1. You remember, we talked about last week about the triumphal entry and Palm Sunday and all of that. That was Sunday. Friday, Jesus is put on trial, put on the cross. Saturday, he's dead, he's in the grave. And then after the Sabbath is Sunday. It's the first day of the week. Mary Magdalene and the others, they went over to the tomb because traditionally they would bring like 75 pounds of spices to cover the body and do these ceremonial things. So they're expecting a normal experience, but there was nothing normal about this because Matthew says there was a violent earthquake. And for an angel of the Lord came down from heaven and going to the tomb, rolled back the stone and sat on it. And his appearance it was like lightning, and his clothes were white as snow. So this was no ordinary day, of course. It's miraculous that heaven is interfering in this moment. And the angel of God is like rolling the tomb away, and there he is. And it's amazing to see. And especially considering that in verse 4 it says that the guards who were there, they were so afraid that they shook and they become like dead men. These are guards who were given orders that you guard this tomb with your life. And all of a sudden an angel of God shows up in the midst of an earthquake. They forget, we're doomed here in a lot of different ways. And so this scene is unfolding. And then an angel of the Lord, as the ladies are coming, he shows up and he says, do not be afraid. And how many times is it that anytime in the Bible an angel of God or a messenger shows up, one of the first things they have to say is, don't freak out. It's like as if you can help by being freaking out, right? But they always say it every time, don't freak out, don't be afraid, for I know that you're looking for Jesus, who was crucified. It's like a pretty big deal. Not sick, not in the hospital, crucified, put on a cross. He's dead. You came here looking for him, but he is not here. He is risen. And so the angel of the Lord gives them that message. He is risen from the dead. And I think one of the more important verses of this whole story is right here in verse 6 and 7, where the angel says, come and see. Like, I need you to set your eyes on this. I think it's really important. Come and see the place where they lay, or the place where he laid. And then go quickly and tell his disciples, he is risen from the dead, and he's going ahead of you into the Galilee where you will see him. And to me, I think it's important that the angel's inviting them to experience this. Don't believe what I'm just saying here. I want you to see it, because it's going to be really important as you go on. So the women, after hearing this, of course, they're going to be obedient to the angel. They hurry away from the tomb and afraid, clearly, like what is about to happen, what's going on, what's happening here, and yet filled with joy, because if there's any hope at all, man, I want to hold on to that. So they're filled with joy, and they run to tell the disciples. And then suddenly Jesus met them and said, greetings, he said. And they came to him, clasped his feet, they worshiped him. And then Jesus says, saying, don't be afraid, because I know this is not normal here. Don't be afraid, but trust me. And he goes on, he says, go and tell my brothers in Galilee where they will see me there. And in the story, they have this experience. Go and tell the others, and they will see, and they experience all of this. And so in this story, it's just amazing, it's miraculous, it's wonderful, it's central to our faith. But of course, for those who are skeptical, like most of us can be skeptical, it's miraculous. It's kind of, to really believe he was dead and now he's alive. That's not easy. And so then I begin thinking, what would it take in those moments, in that early Sunday? What does it take for somebody to believe? Because, I mean, they were there, and so many saw him hanging on a cross, and everybody ever got put on a cross by expert executioners always died. They put him in a grave. He's dead. What does it take for them to believe Jesus is alive? In fact, as you know, I wish I had time. If I had an hour and a half right here, I would show you a movie, right? They did a whole movie called Risen that 3-4 years ago. Go back and watch that. They did a really good job of, like, from a skeptical kind of a standpoint, reenacting the whole scene. Really awesome. But I don't have an hour and a half. So I'm just like, how do we talk through this? How is it possible that Christianity survived for those first few days, much less for centuries, and now to where there's now even, like, they say 2.3 billion followers of this Jesus who was dead and is alive. And it's important. It's why we're here, to understand that and process that, and then really ultimately to apply that. And so in those first days, how did Christianity survive, and to the point where, I mean, again, we're here now because of that? I've been thinking about it and wrestling with that in a lot of ways, and just trying to find some practical ways of, how do we in our own days kind of sense this and experience this, and to what extent we believe this. And so the movie did a great job, but I was like, I would need some way to wrap my hands around it. So then I remembered, oh yeah, did you hear this story a few weeks ago? In terms of, like, what's believable and not believable kind of stuff. Did you hear a few weeks ago that Michael Jordan was in town? He was playing golf, like, just a couple miles from here, and not even a mile, like a couple blocks from here at the Oceanside Country Club. And so people started talking, yeah, Michael Jordan's in town. It's like, sports hero and all that kind of stuff, playing golf over there. And it's like, to what extent that's believable or some kind of crazy rumor, right? And come to find out, it was during bike week. Not bike week, race week, I should say it right. It was during race week, and Michael Jordan is either part or full owner of a NASCAR racing team. And so knowing that it was race week and he's a part owner and he likes golf, it's perfectly believable. And I think the newspaper said something about it. So it's like, you could believe, like, Michael Jordan was just a few blocks from there. That's fairly believable. But then I was thinking, like, at a whole nother level, what would it take for you to believe that the Queen of England was here last week? Like, if I told you, you come to church on a weekend and I'm here and I'm like, hey, did you know that the Queen of England was here last week? Yeah, we had dinner together. Not like at my house. We were down at, like, Charlie Horse eating crab legs and stuff. It was the place was packed. Like, it was just mayhem all over the place. Yeah, can you picture the Queen of England, like, dipping her fingers in the butter and, like, eating crab? And it's like, yeah, she's down there at Charlie Horse, and we're eating crab legs and all that stuff, and she's staying at the Holiday Inn Express down on A1A, and we had this, like, fundraising dinner on Saturday, and it was pretty awesome, and it was pretty cool. And like to what extent, like, what would it take for you to believe that? Like some people trust me, relatively speaking, so if I'm telling you, like, do you believe it? You're like, I don't know, I'm a little skeptical about that one, right? It just doesn't quite fit. I wouldn't blame you for not believing that. But what would it take to believe that? Like, so if I had some photos, that would help, right? If I flashed some photos on the screen of me and the Queen sucking butter off the crab legs at Charlie Horse, like, is that like, because you can Photoshop anything nowadays, right? So we can make up some things. So the pictures might not do it for you. But what if there was, like, some of your friends and maybe a couple of your relatives who you know and trust and you even like them, that they told you, I saw her, right? Then maybe, you're like, I don't know, maybe, right? What would it take for you to believe the Queen of England was here last week and we had dinner together and did all this stuff? It would take a lot, wouldn't it? But the more that, of course, you knew people who, if I said that we were at a fundraising luncheon and there was 500 people who saw her, and you started talking to some of those people, would it be more, all of a sudden it might begin to become more believable. And it's a silly story. It's a silly example. But then I was just thinking, like, in that early Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, after that first Easter, to what's it take for you to believe the guy who was dead on the cross is now alive again? It's a big deal. It's pretty extraordinary. Not just the fact that he was dead, now he's alive. That's pretty heavy enough. but also in the coming weeks and months, knowing that, I mean, just pretend like you were there in the first month after Easter, the first Easter. And you saw the crucifixion stuff, and you were hearing these stories, and we were all talking about it, and I was saying, hey, you know a couple people, and you guys know, and everybody's sharing these stories. We saw Jesus. And because the scriptures, if you read through the Bible, it says that there was 12 documented sightings, of which there was 500 people gathered together in one place with Jesus after the resurrection. But just on top of all that, if I'm asking you to believe this in this first coming months and maybe the first year after Jesus was risen from the dead. And if I'm telling you this, but then I have this little caveat for you. Oh yeah, the Jewish rulers, they've gotten together with the Romans, and they pretty much have outlawed Christianity. And if you get caught talking about this in public, you're probably going to get hung on a cross yourself. So knowing that, I also want you to believe in this story, and I want you to give your life to a cause. Are you in or not? And to me, it's like understanding that in those early days, that Christianity pretty quickly became fully illegal to the point of course, we know like Saul was the famous one. He's this famous like headhunter, literally. He's going around hunting down Christians. The Romans would light their streets with people on fire because they believed in Jesus. And so I'm telling you, knowing all of that, hey, I think you should put your hope in the story of Jesus. Are you in? The point of this is, what did it take for this message to get out from days to weeks to months? And of course, we know in the day of Pentecost, the 3,000 people are baptized in one day, and then tens of thousands, and then here we are now, right? In the midst of all of the trials and the struggles that people literally gave their lives for the cause and the mission of Jesus. I think that's why it's so important, where early in that story in Matthew 28, where the angels like, come and see. Go there and you will see him. And there were many who saw and began to spread that word, but then understanding that it's not just a story. That what this means is for the first time, after we kind of sort through all of the ins and outs of it and understanding the prophetic and how the Old Testament scriptures talked about it, but what this means is, for the very first time in history, we have hope. You think about it. Prior to Jesus being risen from the dead, where is hope? Well, I hope today's going to be a good day. Cross my fingers. What is it in life that you're going to put your hope in? The Jews at that time had been conquered by Rome, and they didn't have any of their own rulers. They didn't have their own hierarchy. They're under the Roman thumb and then persecuted after. Like, what real hope is there? But this guy who was on a cross was dead, alive again, as the scripture foretold, and many witnesses passed word about, that there is hope of not just a better life for today, but for eternity. There's not just life, and there's not just hope for eternity, but there's hope for today. And then, of course, many who had followed him all throughout his 3 years of teaching would remember things. Like John, he documented it, that story of Lazarus, who was dead. Not just revived, but resurrected. And Martha was there. And Jesus, oh yeah, remember what he said? Jesus says, I am. Like long before the crucifixion ever happened, Jesus says, I am the resurrection and the life. And anyone who believes in me will live even after dying. That there is hope for life after my heart stops. There's nothing else that gives us this. And he goes on that everyone who believes in me, everyone who lives in me and believes in me will never die. That hope for eternity is amazing. Jesus went on and talked to Martha and said, Martha, do you believe this? And Martha's like, yes, I've always believed that you are Messiah. We talked about this on Palm Sunday. Messiah, Savior, hero, save me. Now, I've always believed that you are Messiah, the Son of God, the one who has come into the world from God. The question for us, here we are thousands of years later, is, what do you believe? Now, it's really easy to say in church, well, I believe too, yeah. Yeah, I know, but like verbally we can say, I believe. But man, what about when life gets hard? There are times when we need CPR, right? There are times there are parts of my life that I need some new life, some Bee Gees staying alive. I need some help, right? You think about your finances, right? Anybody need CPR to your finances? It's like, yes, I need some new energy, some new life in that. What about your career or maybe your physical health, your marriage? You know, in life, when it gets hard, sometimes we need help, we need community, we need our church to breathe new life into the struggles, right? Yeah, and that's absolutely true. But what about when you get to the end and all of a sudden there's no matter how hard you tried and all the resources that you put into it, all the effort that you put into making your life better, it just seems as if it hasn't mattered. Have you ever had those days when you feel like there is no hope? Man, what we have in an Easter story is an opportunity to believe that there is not just power of revival, but power of resurrection. And man, it's so important because I know way too many people who have been through some hard things, terrible things, difficulties in life. And the problem is, and what's tragic about hard times, is sometimes people go through life having been, hurt and abused and addicted and broken and sick and all of those kinds of things, and they let their brokenness define who they are. And to me, it's such a terrible waste. There are so many people that in the pain and the defeat of life just give in and they walk around as if they're not alive. And they embrace this idea of like, well, I've tried, there's nothing else I can do, so this is just the way it is. This is my life, and they resign, they quit, because their efforts have not paid off. And then I start wondering, I start thinking, and I want to ask you this question today before you go, and it's something along the lines of this. Is there anything in your life that you have accepted as your fate, or even defined your identity, even though God has done everything he could to prove that you don't have to live that way? In other words, in the hard times of life, when you just got nothing left and I can't fix it, I can't make it better, I can't change it, and we just resigned to quit, when the reality is we got to come back and remember that Jesus, if he was risen from the dead, has the power of resurrection and that there's new life that's possible. That if Jesus was risen from the dead, he can resurrect a dead marriage. He can resurrect a dead career, a defeated outlook, and a depressed lifestyle. If we believe in this story, then that ought to translate into how we live. That Jesus can heal addiction and sickness and release you from guilt and shame, right? And it's all about, God, I'm going to trust, I'm going to put my hope in the only thing that is worthy of hope. Do you have hope for tomorrow? Do you have hope for eternity? Is there a time is there any part of your life where you need resurrection power? Man, the scriptures talk about this. I love it. Where in Romans 6, for instance, says, for we died and we were buried with Christ through baptism. This idea of this picture of I'm going to give my life, I'm going to surrender my life to God, and so I'm going to be baptized in this ceremony. It's a picture of death, burial, and resurrection. And when you do, he says that when we give our lives, when we surrender, when we die to Jesus and give our lives to him in baptism, as Christ was risen from the dead, by the glorious power of the Father, we may also have life. We may be able to live new life. And so the power of resurrection gives us hope for eternity, but more importantly, while that's critical, so many times we're focused on today. What I want us to do is make sure that we can see the hope of resurrection in our everyday, understanding that when you are in Christ, you are new. And all of that junk and all that pain and the trauma and the stuff from ages ago that continues to define you doesn't have to define you. It doesn't have to hold you back, that you can live new. Do you believe? I think this Easter story is obviously foundational to our faith, but I think is the thing that it's worthy of your hope for today and for eternity. 1 Peter 3 says, this, again, talking about this baptism picture, it's a story of salvation. He says, the water is a picture of baptism, which saves you not by removing dirt from your body, but it's a response to believing that God is worthy of putting your hope into. And it's effective because of the resurrection of Jesus. So I think there are times we need to work harder, staying alive, staying alive. I got to breathe new life into some pieces and parts of my days. There are times when you got to do that. But then when you get to the end of your efforts and you've got nothing else to give, now where are you going to look? And this story gives us something new, something more. And the ability to surrender and say, God, I got nothing left. And when we get to that point, God, I've got nothing left, that's when he begins. That's when his power begins to restore and renew. And the power of resurrection is possible. And I want to make sure that you understand that and you're invited to embracing that. The power of resurrection is for you. It's for each of us. So we're going to be doing, if this is new to you, we're going to be doing a baptism service all weekend long after every worship service. If you're ready for that, we want to help you with that. If you're online only, fill out a connection card. Let us know. We will meet you on a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, every day of the week, and we'll help figure that out. If you're on one of our campuses this weekend, we'd love for you to meet with one of our team, with our blue shirts, and say, hey, I'm ready, and I want to make this happen, and I want to surrender my life because I've got nothing else that's worthy of hope. We want to help you with that. So I want to invite you to consider that. And then also for everyone who's already done that, maybe just to let you reflect on this. We do a reflection time, an ability to kind of just sit and just say, God, do a work in me. Talk about it if you want. It's not quiet time. It's reflection. Feel free to talk. But here's a question I would really want you to sit with before you go. A couple of questions. Same kind of thing, reworded two different ways. Is there any part of your life that's in need of resurrection power? There's a whole lot of things in your life that need, to be revived. I get that. That you need some more strength and energy. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about I've got nothing else. I don't know where else to go. There's no more hope that I can find. That part. Is there any part of your life that is in need of resurrection power? Or another way of saying it, is there, in what ways do you need new hope and or healing or help? To identify those, maybe even just one area. What is that? And begin to bring that, maybe not to the cross, but to the grave and saying, God, I quit. I give this to you. I need you. I want to allow you to sit to reflect on that. And then after a little bit of time to reflect, then we'll bring it back together and then we'll close out our time. But for now, before you go and do all that we're supposed to be doing all this weekend, think about this. Talk about it if you want, and then we'll come right back. We are excited that you have decided to join us today, and my hope is that you have been touched in some way and are blessed by something that's happened here today, and that maybe God has spoken to you in this. That's my hope. And if we can be of help in any way as a church, that connection card is a really easy way to do that. That's important for you to know because you may think of something on Monday or Thursday or whatever, or in the middle of the night. Fill out that connection card. Let us know whether it's a prayer request or you've got questions, whatever that might be. If you're new to this and you're ready to take that next step of faith, the baptism service, we're going to start those first thing in the morning. We've got our sunrise service at 7. Same kind of service we're doing here, but the baptism will happen right after that, and then all morning long throughout the day. Last thing I'll do is I want to remind you that next week we start a new series, which is called, pull up a chair. It's the idea of we're going to talk through some things, and we've asked many of you to what is it that's been on your mind that you think maybe the church ought to talk about? And we're going to kind of run through some of those things, and what's the Bible say about these things? Let me give you a little bit of insight into what that might look like. Just a couple of things like what does the Bible say about end times and Revelation, and are we living in the last days and all of that kind of stuff? There's a lot of buzz around that as our culture is rapidly shifting one way and another. What does the Bible say about that? How do we think through that? Another one is what is sexual purity and why does that matter? Hot topic. Another one's aren't all religions the same and who's going to make it to heaven or not, that kind of stuff. And then one of the other ones I'm really looking forward to is the T word, transgender. And that's a new topic in the world nowadays. And what does the Bible have to say about that? That and other things. And so we want to encourage you to come back and really dive into what God would have to say about some of these things that we're all thinking through and dealing with. But that happens next week. For today, happy Easter. Glad that you were here, and if we can help you, we're here for you. You guys have a great day. We'll see you next weekend. Thank you.